Environmental public health practice has many parallels to public health practice generally. Both are guided by the core functions of assessment, policy, and assurance and have 10 parallel essential services. Both emphasize disease prevention and health promotion rather than disease treatment. Environmental health practitioners come to the field from a variety of backgrounds and work in a variety of settings. This chapter provides an overview of environmental public health practice, focusing on policy and prevention, and reviews some concepts from the last 4 modules. The mission of environmental public health is to control hazards and promote health, with an emphasis on disease prevention. As we learned in Module 1, environmental hazards change over time and differ by geography. In the U.S. and other industrialized countries, environmental health practices, primarily sanitation, have greatly contributed to increases in life expectancy. More recently, strong environmental laws like the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts have greatly improved air and water quality. Some of those laws are in jeopardy under this presidential administration. Significant environmental health challenges remain. Industrialized countries produce and release hazards into the environment, including plastics, industrial chemicals, pesticides, and the greenhouse gases responsible for climate change. The sources of these releases are often diffuse, coming from small and multiple sources, making control more difficult and one that requires both policy and public participation. Developing countries face both old environmental public health challenges like sanitation and waterborne disease, and new ones like climate change, exposure to toxic metals, and ambient air pollution. People from developing countries are disproportionately burdened by these new hazards due to the lack of worker protections and other resources and underlying disease burden. This is broadly a matter of environmental and climate injustice, since industrialized countries account for the majority of environmental releases through their demand for goods and services. In Module 1, we learned about the applied DIPSI model to the Healthy 2020 environmental public health objectives. This model helps environmental health practitioners direct actions at driving forces, pressures, state of environment, exposures, or health effect, with actions further upstream targeting the driving forces and pressures preferable to downstream actions which target state, exposure, and effect. Upstream actions are more effective in controlling hazards and preventing disease than downstream actions. Similarly, we can think of prevention as a 3-level model of primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention. Primary prevention includes health promotion and specific protection from hazards. Secondary prevention is aimed at early detection of exposure before disease has developed. Tertiary prevention identifies people with disease so that interventions can prevent or delay the disability or death. Using lead as an example, primary prevention is removing lead from gasoline, paint, and other objects. Secondary prevention is screening workers or children for evidence of lead exposure. Tertiary prevention is proper nutrition and cognitive intervention for children who were exposed. As you learned in the last model, industrial hygiene follows some of these same prevention principles. Specifically, substitution of a hazard is preferable to engineering and administrative controls, which are preferable to prevention efforts that require behavior modification, like wearing personal protective equipment. There are 3 core public health functions: assessment, policy, and assurance. Assessment includes monitoring for exposure or disease, also called surveillance. Investigating public health problems is also a form of assessment. Policy can be laws, rules, and/or guidelines at the international, national, regional, or local level. Policy failures include the halting of the EPA Clean Power Plan, even though there's evidence of climate change. There have also been successes, like the U.S. Clean Air Act and the Frank R. Lautenberg Chemical Safety for the 21st Century Act, abbreviated TSCA. See the class notes for more details on these 2 policy examples. Often, policies are neither complete successes nor complete failures, as there are risk trade-offs that must be considered. For example, stringent regulation may inhibit innovation or cause job loss. The 3rd core function of public health is assurance, which includes enforcing policies, linking people to services, and evaluating the effectiveness of programs. There are 10 essential services of public health with 10 parallel essential environmental public health services. If you ever apply for a CDC grant, you'll get to know these services very well. More information is in the class notes. This public health wheel shows the 3 core functions: assessment, policy development, and assurance in black around the wheel of essential services. The essential services can be grouped under the 3 core functions. Essential services 1 and 2 fit under the core function of assessment. Essential Services 3, 4, and 5 fit under Policy Development, while Essential Services 6, 7, 8, and 9 fit under Assurance. Research, Essential Service 10, and System Management form the center of the wheel since these activities are included within all three core functions. Here is another way to think about the three core functions of public health. When you assess a situation, you check it out. In this case, we're using surveillance and investigation to monitor health. To protect from hazards, prevent disease, or promote health, you may need to take action, which typically requires some form of policy development. Then you need to confirm that your system is working. Are laws being enforced? Are people able to access services? Are programs working? This cycle continually repeats itself to make improvements to the health status of a population and to address new public health challenges. This slide lists examples of environmental public health policy. Legislation is enacted to fund programs and requires or restricts actions of individuals and/or institutions. For example, the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, referred to as CERCLA, provides a federal superfund, as in a lot of money, to clean up uncontrolled or abandoned hazardous waste sites, accidents, spills, and other releases of pollutants. The legislation also gives EPA the power to seek out the parties responsible for the pollution to assure site cleanup. In contrast to legislation, regulations are authorized by statute but written by a government agency. For example, Congress enacts legislation which gives the Food and Drug Administration the responsibility to write the regulations, which are the details of how the legislation will be carried out. The example is FDA's egg safety regulations, which provide instructions to industry on how eggs should be handled. A federal agency or advisory committee may provide guidance or recommendations. This is a way to communicate the current scientific thinking to practitioners or industry. For example, FDA has guidance to industry to help phase out the use of medically important antibiotics in food animals. Guidance and recommendations are not legally binding, but they are still a type of policy. Ordinances are laws passed by municipalities such as towns or cities. Bans on smoking in bars and restaurants were first passed as local ordinances and have been very successful in reducing exposure to secondhand smoke. The strategic plan is another form of policy which provides a framework for government agencies, businesses, and nonprofit organizations to plan, budget, and assign accountability for measurable outcomes. Many of the national environmental laws have implications for public health. Briefly, the Clean Air Act is the comprehensive federal law that regulates air emissions from stationary and mobile sources. The Clean Water Act regulates pollutants discharged into U.S. waters and funded the construction of sewage treatment plants. The Safe Drinking Water Act protects waters that are or potentially will be used for drinking water, both surface and groundwaters. This act gave EPA the authority to establish minimum standards in tap water and requires all public water systems to comply. The National Environmental Policy Act ensures that all branches of government give consideration to the environment before undertaking major federal action. The Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act regulates pesticide sales and use and requires licensing of all pesticides by the EPA. The Toxic Substances Control Act regulates the production, use, and disposal of certain chemicals and substances known to be toxic, such as PCBs, asbestos, and lead-based paint. The Occupational Safety and Health Act, or OSHA, was passed to ensure worker safety. The act also created the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH, within the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to conduct occupational health and safety research. Although most of these laws are considered primarily environmental in nature, they draw upon public health science and have a tremendous role in protecting the public health. Unfortunately, the chemical standards established by OSHA have not been updated since around the 1960s, and they don't reflect the current science about the toxicity of chemicals in the workplace. The essential services of environmental public health are performed at every level of government: international, federal, tribal, regional, state, and local. Not every level performs each service. Similarly, policies differ by level of government. For example, international treaties are necessary to address global climate change, while local governments make policies that affect the walkability of a neighborhood. In addition to governments, there are many types of professionals who provide environmental health services, including health providers, academia, nonprofit organizations, and private businesses. Enforcing federal environmental and health laws is a responsibility shared by many agencies, including the Environmental Protection Agency, the United States Department of Agriculture, the Food and Drug Administration, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Federal laws supersede state law to provide equal protections, but state or local law can be enacted to be stricter than federal laws or to provide additional protections. Governmental environmental health services have been built around the core issues in environmental health such as food safety and air and water quality. Restaurant inspection at the state level is one such example. Services are added as new issues emerge. For example, many state and city health departments now have climate change adaptation programs, including Vermont. One advantage of having responsibility for environmental public health essential services distributed across agencies at various levels is that it provides some basic protections for all while making community-specific tailoring possible. The downside is that a patchwork of services may exist, resulting in gaps for some communities. Historically, environmental health has managed biological, chemical, radiological, and physical hazards to prevent disease. These services are still critically important, but the field has evolved to also promote health. Examples include city planning to increase safe areas for recreation and encouraging nature contact among youth. This class mostly covers hazards, but opportunities for health promotion are a focus of environmental public health too. And that's all for this chapter.